good to be with you all today to spend some time together. My name is Kambria Evans. I'm an EMDRIA approved consultant, certified EMDR clinician in San Jose, California, which is in Northern California in Silicon Valley. And I have a private practice here where I specialize in EMDR, complex trauma, and EMDR consultation and trainings. I'm making this video today with the theme of how we can best understand, support, and work with frontline healthcare workers. In this case, I'm talking about doctors and nurses. As some of you know from my previous videos, I've been working with I think I have 6 now, ICU, infectious disease, ER, nurses and physicians in different hospitals and locations around the Bay Area, and have learned a lot. I've learned a lot from working with these people. Have so much respect and protective feelings about them and care for them, and have been surprised at some of the things that have happened in our work together that I wanted to pass along to you. If you either are working with a doctor or a nurse right now during COVID, or one might want to come into your practice. I imagine that most of us will be getting requests from some kind of frontline or healthcare worker as this continues to go on for the next 6 to 12 months. So I hope that today's video feels helpful. I will, as always, be posting a downloadable resource or guide from what I did share today, so that you have kind of like a quick tips and tools sheet from today. If you can't listen to the whole thing, go to my website, KambriaEvans.com. There's a tab for therapists for free resources, and you can download all my free guides and tips and workbooks over there, and watch videos over there as well. So hopefully that feels supportive to you as we all figure out how to get through COVID together. So if you have the mental space to just imagine something with me, I want to tell you a story. And in this story, you are the main character. Okay, so I want you to imagine yourself in your office. This is before COVID. You're in your office, and all of a sudden you notice that your practice is getting really full. More full than it's ever been. So full that you are just like fire hosed by the amount of clients that are coming in. And what's interesting about these clients is that they all seem to have the same symptoms and same problem. However, what you're noticing very quickly in each of your sessions is that all of your training, everything that you've practiced, everything that you feel confident in, everything that you know isn't working. It's not working. You are constantly noticing every single session of every single day for weeks, for months, that you don't have any resource to really help this person. You might have some things that are kind of like, basic things like breathing and things like that to kind of help them get through it. But you can see so clearly every session, every day, every week, for months, that your clients are suffering in a way that you have never seen them suffer. Some of them are going to be suffering for a long, long time, but will eventually be okay. Some of them aren't going to make it. Some of them are going to get so bad in your practice that they are going to pass away and die. You're going to get phone calls from people in their family. You're going to have to explain to them what happened, why you couldn't fix them, why you couldn't help them, why what you had to offer was not enough. And you have to do this every day, every session, every week, for potentially 18 months. It sounds like a nightmare, doesn't it? It sounds like a nightmare. This is what doctors and nurses are feeling when they go to work. They are feeling helpless. They are feeling like they don't have what they need. They are feeling lost. And all of those things might not come as a surprise to you. It kind of makes sense, right? But if you have any emotional capacity to imagine what this might feel like for you and your practice, I want to invite you just to sit with that for a moment and to just notice the overwhelm of the idea of that and what it must feel like to actually be in that every session, every day, every week, every month, for maybe 12 to 18 months. It is blowing my mind how the healthcare workers that I am supporting have sustained the last 4 to 5 to 6 months. It's incredible to me. And I have a severe concern that a lot of them are going to have to find really new creative ways to sustain for another 6 months, 12 months, however long COVID goes on. Okay? So as we fall into flu season, which is going to look a lot in terms of symptoms and presentation like COVID symptoms, okay? I want you to think about if I'm supporting a doctor or nurse, if I am getting one coming into my practice to do virtual EMDR, what are the things that I can offer them, knowing that they have been in this experience for a while and will be in this experience for a long time, okay? There is, for some healthcare workers, especially in California, depending on where you live, this may not apply, but for some healthcare workers, there's a part 2 to this story, okay? I want you to imagine, again, you're the main character in your practice, that you are in your practice, you're seeing all these clients, you are offering them all your tools in your toolbox, nothing's really working, some of them aren't making it, they're dying, some of them are just incredibly emotionally ill, just physically ill, and you feel helpless. Part 2 of this story is you found, along with your other EMDR colleagues, a potential strategy to help other people not come into your practice with these symptoms, with these issues that you can't really respond to the way that you have been responding to issues before. And let's say that you have been trying to communicate this idea along with your colleagues to the greater community, and no one is really responding. Maybe some people are. Maybe like half of the people are like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. I'll definitely take your tips and strategies so that I don't have to come into your practice because I hear how bad it is in there. But let's say that 25% or 50%, depending on where you live, of the people are like, yeah. We know that you're an amazing EMDR therapist and you know a lot of things and you've been seeing a lot of these clients in your practice, but we're just going to live our lives. We're just going to do what we need to do out here. I want you to imagine for a moment the anger, the betrayal that you would feel as a healthcare provider in your private practice or in your agency where you work, knowing that you have a small idea about how to help people not spread this emotional disease around. And some people basically are just dismissing you and blowing you off or telling you that that idea doesn't even work, okay? I'm obviously talking about masks right now, right? So understand that a lot of healthcare workers are feeling like they're in a one-sided relationship with their community. The community that they have committed to serving, protecting, taking care of, no matter what, the community that are risking their lives to help. They're saying, hey, can you do this one simple thing? Can you put a mask on when you leave your house? For them to go out into the community and see people not wearing masks, for them to see on the news people not wearing masks, for them to see politicians not supporting them staying just semi-functional in their jobs, has felt for them like the ultimate betrayal. To be in a relationship where you are fully committed and putting your life on the line and have the other side of that relationship not care enough to put a mask on is traumatizing for these healthcare workers. So it's not just what they're seeing, right, in the ICU or in the ER or on the floor, because a lot of just medicine floors have been converted to COVID floors, depending on where you live. It's not just the trauma of COVID, okay? It is the trauma of being part of a society where you put your life on the line every day. And part of that society basically just says, in so many words, we don't care about you. Okay? So they are experiencing trauma in multiple arenas of their life right now. Okay? They can't go see their families and hug their families. Some of them can't hug or see or touch their little kids. Think about that. I have 3-year-old twins. If I couldn't see or touch my kids for more than like a couple of days, I would lose my mind. My heart would be smashed. Okay? So these healthcare workers are holding all of this. And I want to explain this to you in a really detailed way so that should you get a phone call from a doctor or a nurse that wants to work with you, I want you to already have a sense of kind of where they're coming from right now, that we're in month 5 or 6, depending on where you live, of COVID. Okay? So one thing I want to share that I think is really important about this group is that, let me ask you a question. How do doctors and nurses get to be doctors and nurses? Okay, what kind of a person typically becomes a doctor or a nurse, right? What kind of adaptive responses go along with that? Let me get specific. I'm seeing a lot of doctors and nurses who have trauma responses from things when they were younger around wanting to control, wanting to plan, wanting to show up competent or as the most competent person in the room, wanting to be perfect, wanting to belong, okay? So you get these high-achieving people, these high-achieving professionals, and not all of them have these kind of trauma responses or childhoods, but a lot of them do, right? A lot of them come in trying to fulfill a positive cognition of, I am valuable because I am competent. Or when I'm in control, I feel like everything's okay. They come in with these adaptive responses, these positive cognitions from their histories, right? These things, these overdeveloped parts of them, have gotten them to the point of being a successful healthcare provider. And thank God that that all worked out that way, because we cherish our healthcare workers. But here's the problem. When we're in a pandemic and there's not enough protective gear, there is not enough ventilation or ventilators. When they're showing up to work and they don't know the answer, they don't have control, their whole sense of self could be rattled, right? When they don't feel like they belong because society is basically rejecting them by not wearing masks, portions of society, right? When previously they have valued their competence and are now in a daily situation where people are dying in front of them and suffering in front of them and families are screaming at them, they don't know the answer, right? That overdeveloped part can't show up and help them feel like themselves or feel okay. Then we have a problem. So again, we're not just talking about the trauma of seeing what's happening with COVID in the hospital or the trauma of being in society when people aren't wearing masks and feeling that betrayal. We're also talking about what happens to healthcare workers when they have these overdeveloped parts that have gotten them to be a physician or a nurse. And those parts don't work because COVID has taken away the situation or the framework for those parts to show up and know the answer and belong and to feel like they're in control and to feel like they can plan and be perfect and all of these things, okay? Deep breaths. I'm getting to the hopeful part. What has been awesome and just incredible for me about supporting these healthcare workers, okay? I have been blown away by a couple of tips and tools that I've done with them that I want to share with you. And I'll again put this in the downloadable guide on my website so you can have it written down. For them to have an understanding of their feelings is important, right? For them to understand, I feel powerless is important. Okay, then what do we do with that? This is tip number 1. I did a video, my last video, about customized resourcing, okay? If I have a nurse who is telling me I feel powerless, I want to think about how to customize her resources around feeling powerful so that she doesn't have to yell at her coworkers to feel powerful. She doesn't have to go home and start yelling at her partner to feel powerful. She has resources and an articulated, conscious way to feel powerful in a very powerless situation. Okay? If you're curious about how to customize resources, I want to invite you to go back to my last video and check that out. I go into more detail with that. I also have a customized workbook for clients that they can use with their EMDR therapist that goes over how to do that in detail. Okay, so what that is customizing the resource for the situation, for the positive cognition. All right, that's tip number 1. Tip number 2. Processing recent traumas with my healthcare worker clients has done something that's blown my mind. We've been doing virtual EMDR. Some of them are doing it from work in the parking lot in their cars, right? For them to be able to process a recent trauma, finish the target, and get to the positive cognition, that process target then becomes a resource for them to keep going. Let me be specific about this. If I'm working with a physician who is distraught because she is learning on the fly through COVID and has made some choices about experimental treatments or medications that either didn't help and the patient passed away, or even sometimes made the patient worse because in the beginning, and really maybe still now, we're just kind of guessing. For her to be able to process that recent trauma from March or April, now we're in July, for her to get from this negative cognition, right, of I'm incompetent, for her to get to the positive cognition of I did the best I could, I can learn. That is a resource for her to keep doing what she is having to do. Does that make sense? So the trauma target that we just did now is the resource that she goes to. Okay, talking about customized creative resourcing. When we process these recent traumas, when we get people to that positive cognition and they can actually feel that in their body, and that experience of, I made all these choices in the beginning, I didn't know what I was doing, what I was learning, for that to feel different, feels so different that it's not even neutral. It feels like a sense of pride, a sense of I can learn, is keeping that person going. Okay. The other thing I want to share is that I want to help you empower your healthcare worker clients by helping them understand their tools in their toolbox. That a lot of healthcare providers, and therapists included, have the ability to compartmentalize our stuff, our feelings, our thoughts, our responses, to put them over here, to focus and attune and be with what is and help that person process that, or help process the situation, okay? Healthcare workers are doing that all day. They're being asked to work more, and so they're running out of space, as I'm sure a lot of therapists are, who are home with their kids. They're running out of spaces to not compartmentalize, okay? So for healthcare workers to understand that system existed before COVID, the system being you have the ability to compartmentalize, which helps you do your job. So it's a good thing. We're not shaming the ability to compartmentalize. You need that to be a healthcare provider, right? For them to understand that they could do that before, we're doing it before, and still have that now is important. It's essential. To introduce this idea of a dimmer switch. when you're doing work together can really help them understand I can have a sense of control and power around my emotional experience, okay? For them to be able to understand I'm compartmentalizing all day at work, and now in my session with you, I'm going to use my dimmer switch to go all the way to compartmentalize, all the way to flooding myself with emotions, and maybe figure out where in the middle I can hang out a little bit more. That has been so relieving for a lot of my healthcare providers to know that they're not totally helpless, they're not totally powerless, right? That they can use their dimmer switch when they want to, that their ability to compartmentalize is a good thing, but just like anything, if it's overdeveloped, it can have some consequences. For them to understand that, yeah, processing that recent trauma from March and April, oh, God, that's a painful one. Oh, that's really uncomfortable. But what if I could process that and it could actually be neutralized? Think about how much more energy I would have to be in what's happening now. I wouldn't have to carry that heaviness and that disturbance with me into what's happening now, right? And what if it even turned into a resource for me? What if it even turned into a place in my life where I get to feel proud of myself for doing that, okay? I think these are just really important things that everyone needs to think about when working with doctors and nurses and healthcare workers right now, okay? As always, if you have any questions, if you are confused about what I'm talking about in the video, if something on the guide that I'm going to post with this is unclear, email me. I love hearing from all of you, right? We're all figuring this out together right now. It's Kambria@KambriaEvans.com. And my website has all the free downloads and resources from before. You can check those out. And if you are noticing, as a lot of us are, myself included, that figuring this out as an EMDR therapist alone feels terrible for you, please get consultation. I have 2 consult groups opening up in the fall for fall session. You can go on my website and apply for those if you want to join me. Talk to a colleague who works with healthcare workers and just say, hey, this happened in session today, and you guys can talk about it and help each other. Or find a local consult group. Just find your people to help you through this, because we are not meant to go through this alone and figure this out by ourselves. We're not meant for that. So wonderful to be with all of you. I hope this feels so helpful to you. And I just want to say to anyone that is a healthcare worker or partner with a healthcare worker or has a child who's a healthcare worker, these are the heroes. These are the medicinal warriors, soldiers of our time right now. And I have so much respect and appreciation, admiration for our healthcare workers, for all of our frontline workers, for all of our essential workers. I want to thank you. Thank you for your sacrifices. Thank you for your integrity to keep showing up, because I know that for a lot of you, escaping would feel amazing. And if you know somebody who is a healthcare worker who hasn't figured out they can get virtual EMDR, I would highly, highly encourage you to invite that person to find someone to support them before flu season, before the fall and the winter, would be my recommendation. So again, great to connect with all of you. I look forward to hearing how this went for you when you implemented this with your clients, and I look forward to seeing you next time. And in the meantime, be safe, healthy, and well. Take care.